can only mean one thing. Christmas is coming. Why is Christmas important? Well, as you may recall, we purchased this massive laser. We use this laser, it's a Trotec Speedy 360, to do mug production, and we also use it to make the intricately crafted Library of Libations. The Library of Libations cocktail dioramas have been extremely popular, and every so often, when we ship them out, folks ask us, can you just ship us the parts and let us assemble it ourselves? That is an awesome question, but the fact is, these things are just too complicated. There are so many individual colors and parts that go into each Library of Libations piece, and they are so intricate that packaging all of these for shipping is just too daunting. We would break too many things. But we love the idea, and it's something that I have been cooking in my head for years. So I have a very fond childhood memory. I grew up in Hawaii, and my dad would often take business trips to the mainland, as we called it, and oftentimes those would involve a trip to the Smithsonian. Now, I don't know if this is my childhood memory warping the reality, but I do remember these gifts. I believe they were from the Smithsonian gift shop, and they were these dinosaur skeleton puzzles that were cut out of wood, flat wood, and you would assemble them and make these three-dimensional dinosaurs. Now, ever since we got the laser cutter, I have wanted to tackle something like that. I've wanted to elevate it and make it my own, and that gave birth to the idea of Flat Pack Exotica. So excited about it. So excited, in fact, that I almost crushed myself with my own excitement. And this has been percolating for years. We've had a laser cutter for almost 2 years now. And just now, we have finally decided to go for it. What was the impetus? Well, Mrs. VanTiki, as always, is the genius. And she said, why not do a Christmas ornament? And I'm like, a Christmas ornament? That's perfect. Why is it perfect? One, it's a good, small, bite-sized piece for me to get started with. And two, it's time sensitive. I've got a deadline. I'm like, I've got to make this thing happen. So that's what we're gonna do today. Like all my other projects, this begins in the sketchbook, specifically with these very rough thumbnails I did while in a cabin in the woods at Camp Sherman of a cool little ornament that I would love to hang from my Christmas tree. This was then further refined while on vacation in Palm Springs. I did a lot of sketching and brainstorming on how to bring this shape into 3 dimensions and really take advantage of the thickness and materials that I was working with. In this case, we're going to use a veneer of bamboo. I took my designs into Adobe Illustrator and laid out Prototype 1. Now, I'm afraid I didn't film any of my Illustrator design work for Prototype 1, but I did film the cutting of it. So behold the laser in action. I knew this was a prototype, so I didn't go completely bonkers on detailing it. I just wanted to see how this thing would fit together and if it even would work. Now, I should say throughout this process, I have also been working in the studio in the ceramic side. I've been making a very complicated mold, and so this project is kind of my dessert. I save it for the afternoon. So I had to patiently wait, like waiting for Christmas morning before I could see if this prototype fit together. Now, before I could put it together, I have to remove the masking. We have a masking on both sides of this bamboo veneer to protect the veneer. The laser is extremely hot and it produces smoke, and we don't want to damage the beautiful satin finish that we have on this beautiful wood. The main reason for doing prototype version 1 was to just check the general scale. I knew I was going to use the center nose piece here, and I wanted to make sure that the width of the nose worked with the overall size of the piece, and just kind of did this fit together. This is the first time I'm taking my 2D drawings and bringing them into 3 dimensions. Now, it can be tricky to do this all in your head, and you occasionally will find out that you make a mistake, and that is definitely the case here. I had put all these finger joints into the design, and I didn't anticipate them overlapping with the eye shape. It involved a saw to fix. This is why we prototype. With the little errant tabs cut away, I was able to click everything together nicely, and I was overall happy with the general fit and finish. But the finger joints kind of left something to be desired. It's a start. So, prototype 1, size good, scale good, overall feel fantastic, but these finger joints, not so hot. Time for us to move on to phase 2. A new version means we are back onto the computer. I'm once again in Adobe Illustrator, and I am making some small and big changes to the design. I am overall changing the proportions. I want to elongate the overall look to the piece, and I'm adding a few more extra details and bits and bobs. One of the big changes we're making is we are getting rid of the finger joints. Once the designs were final, we send them over to the laser computer and we start cutting away. This gets cut in several passes. The first pass is an engraving pass where it's just burning away the top surface of the wood to kind of just make details. It's a nice way of adding color and shapes. And then after all the engraving is done, it switches to cutting, where the laser ups its power and cuts out all the shapes that are needed. Now we have to be careful when removing these because occasionally some of these very small parts can disappear into the laser, and this is something that we'll be addressing later on with some tabs. Okay, we are back. I've got version 2 cut out here. Well, I should say Mrs. VanTiki was kind enough to cut it out for me, and this has been sitting on the shelf throughout the day. I am in the midst of a very complicated mold making procedure, so I'm saving this as kind of like my dessert of the day, putting this together and seeing how it works. Now, version 2, what are the goals? Well, the last one kind of fit together using that tongue and groove technique, the little like, I don't know, that little, this kind of joint. And I'm a little concerned about that because of a thing called the kerf. So a kerf describes the width of whatever is cutting the material. In the case of my table saw, this blade has a width of 1/16 of an inch. So when I cut a board in half, 1/16 of an inch of material is going to vanish. It's going to disappear. Now, it's weird to think of a laser as having a kerf because there's no physical saw blade, but it does have one. That beam of light is vaporizing some material. So, kerfs. They're a little weird, and if I can avoid them, I would like to. So I thought, what if there's a way for this to stick together without ever needing any glue and without having to worry about kerf? So that's the goal for this one. Let's see how it goes together. Everything is going to lynch on this little pin. It's the lynch pin, I guess. Here we go. Come on, buddy. Oh, that is tight. Okay, it is a proper Pacific Northwest fall damp day, and I am hunkered in front of the computer, and it's time for details. I love the form. I love the way it's coming together. So now that I know that it works, I want to dial in the details and add the little interesting bits. So I went back to my iPad. I drew some top-up patterns that I really like, and I just started to crack into figuring out how I want to put the text on the back of this. But yeah, it's time to think about how I want to engrave this and make it extra special. Once again, I'm using Adobe Illustrator to do the final graphics. Now that like I said, I've got the shape figured out, so I'm comfortable putting in lots and lots of detail. So here we got the tapa, this will be an engrave. And then I moved on to placing the text on the back. And from there, it was time to even think about how we are going to package this and cut it. We want to optimize this so we can fit as many as we can on a single sheet of bamboo. And we want to make sure that it will fit well for shipping. Another thing we needed to figure out was tabs. We wanted to make sure that these parts did not fall out before you were ready to build your ornament. So we designed a bunch of tests, and we tried to figure out what the best width of a tab is to hold the part in there and still be very easy to break out for you to assemble. Okay, it's Sunday morning, and I had an epiphany last night. So I get my best ideas either when I'm running or when I'm trying to fall asleep at night. I think it's just those are the two times when I have no distractions. I love it when I'm running because it keeps my mind off of, running, especially when I'm doing a long, kind of not exciting run. But when I'm trying to fall asleep, sometimes it can drive me bonkers because I'll just sit there forever working over a problem in my head. The problem I was working over last night was this. Now, this magical linchpin holds everything on this together except for one part, and that is this forehead. The forehead is only held in by a pressure fit. It's kind of just slotted in right there. Now it's very snug, but I worry. This is made of wood. Maybe someone is going to buy this that lives in a much drier environment than I do, and it'll be a looser fit, and I don't want that piece to fall out. So my idea was I can put an additional little peg right here, and that will lock the forehead in. Why didn't I do it before? Because I was putting the forehead in last when I put this together, but I realized in my head, as I built the thing again and again and again in my head, that I can put the forehead on first and then assemble everything behind it, and that way the pin will lock in, and then the linchpin will hold everything together. I'm super excited. What does this mean though? This means that I've got to go back to the files and make some changes. To save material, I did just a test with a new side piece and a new forehead. This way I'm, not burning through a lot of material, and if this works, then we will cut a full-fledged version 3. Okay, that went together really well. I was able to test out the new side piece. Oh, look at that tapa pattern. Isn't that gorgeous? So happy with that. I think that the new forehead design looks great. It does not slide out anymore. And I think that these link or tab, I don't know what we're going to call them. Link, let's just stick with links. I think that these link positions work great. It is difficult to see them. I think it's a great spot to have them, and I think it's time to prep the final file. It'll be the final test. We're going to cut just one final file, make sure it's okay before we do a whole array of 8 of them on one sheet. Let's go for it. Back to the computer. Okay, I think I've got it. I am out of breath because I've been running back and forth from my little computer nook to the studio to just double check with Denise to make sure that I've got these files set up. The final thing that we did is we're just flipping this one part so we can get the grain and the forehead running in a direction that we think would be neat to have it going counter to the way the rest of the face is going, blah, blah, blah. Let me just save this and run back to the studio and cut it. This is very exciting. This just might be the final version. So here it is. I could not be more excited. It has taken hours and hours and hours and tons of tests to get to this point, but here we are, what I believe is the final cut of the new Flat Pack Exotica Christmas ornament. I'm going to carefully take off the masking and try to get this thing together. Okay, masking is off. That was a little tedious, but it's also very zen, and it's now time to put it together. Am I giddy? You bet I am. It is absolutely magical to see a design come out of your head, go into your sketchbook, go onto the computer, and then suddenly jump into the real world, into a three-dimensional object. And this thing just feels so good. I love the satin finish. I absolutely love this tapa. Oh my God, and look at how tightly it fits together. The click is so satisfying. It just, wait, this is weird. Oh my God, I found a mistake. The tapa should be on the opposite side for this one. Oh, that is why we do tests. Man, can't believe I did that. Okay, so here's where we're at. It is looking so good, except for my tiny little boo-boo of putting the tapa on the wrong side of that element. So we're going to go back onto the computer. I'm going to revise the file, put the tapa on the correct side, and I'm going to put like 1/10 of a millimeter more space on the rising portion of this little clasp for that pin because it was just a little too tight. I want it to be have a little more play in there for when you slide the pin in. I don't want you to damage the piece when you assemble it. Other than that, oh my God, this is so good. So we are going to cut yet another test one after I revise those files because we want everything to be perfect before we cut. What? It's a rainy Friday morning, and I think that I've got this ready for the final cut. Now, I know I've said that many times, possibly too many times, and I'm probably jinxing it right now, but I have this thing flipped now, so it's proper. They should mirror each other perfectly. I adjusted the little puka right here so that the pin will slide in easier. We're gonna send this over right now to the studio. We're gonna try to cut it. Let's all cross those fingers. We're going to attempt a in-laser camera setup. Once again, we are just going to test a single flat pack ornament. I don't want to try cutting all 8 on a sheet until we know that I have done everything correctly. Hopefully I have the tapa put on the proper side. Hopefully the tabs that we've cut work great. Oh wait, the links we've cut work great. And we just want to make sure everything is dialed in before we jump to a full-sized sheet. This is it. The final sheet. Everything seemed to cut fantastically. I think that everything is great. Let's peel off the masking and put it together. Okay, the masking is off. I'm gonna go for it. Okay, so it does look fantastic, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of things we have to do. We have to photograph it, and we got to file for copyright. This is very important. If you are a creator, always register your copyrights. We also started cutting full sheets of the Flat Pack Exotica, so we're putting 8 individual ornaments on a sheet. We also need to prep all of the social media posts. We need to prep the photos for the actual sale. And I've got to come up with some instructions. Oh my God. And then we got to figure out packaging. And you know what? It's a lot. It's a lot. And that's not the purpose of this video. This video is to focus on making the things themselves. We are here for the process of going from sketchbook to prototypes to test pieces to the final production model. And as you can see, we've even gotten busy making ones for sale. Now, you're probably wondering the big questions like, how much is this going to be and when can I get one? I don't quite know today. We're still calculating that stuff, but I can tell you that I will be putting that information in the notes for this video. And the plan is this is going to be a limited time only offer. This is specifically for Christmas of 2021. So we're going to stop making this at a certain point in December. So feel free to order them. And then once December comes, that magical date, we don't know what it is, comes and goes, that'll be it. We're going to close this design. We're going to retire this design and move on to future Flat Pack Exotica projects. So excited, so stoked to be able to share this journey with you. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of ups and downs, and yeah, thanks for watching. I should say, follow me on Instagram at VanTiki for the most current updates on this project and all the other things that we have going on. And maybe follow Mrs. VanTiki too, because she does all the updates for the sales of the Library of Libations. Whew. Am I excited? Yes. It has been a whirlwind putting this together, and I can't wait for it to get out there. See you next episode.